Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Journey to Greatness. Day 206 of 365. With David McDonald, the GOAT. All right, let me set my clock real quick, and we'll be on and rocking. All right. Good morning, everybody. Morning, Liz. Good morning, Auntie. All right, my friends, let's get to it. Jump into this meditation. Alrighty, welcome back, everybody. Wow. All right, welcome back. So now we're getting ready to get into our reading routine. We are currently reading New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And I'll see you guys on the other side. Nice and simple. Whoa. Hmm. Whoa. Jeez. That's powerful. Oh my god. Yeah, that's funny. All right, my friends, welcome back. Man, this book is on fire. How amazing. So we just finished our reading routine. Now we're getting into our journaling routine. All right, so in our journaling routine, what I like to start with, Mr. Hopkins, good morning, good morning. What I usually like to start with our journaling routine is writing about what I'm most grateful for. So in the morning, that is waking up. So I'm grateful for waking up, and I'm grateful for being in perfect health. I write about that first, and then I go back to yesterday's events. Yesterday, I had one of the best days of my life, no question. I Yesterday was very, very, very amazing day. And, it was just incredible, absolutely incredible. So I felt really good. I felt like I was high, like spiritually high all day long. Like I was just floating through the day. It was amazing. And I think that is what we live for. You know, nothing bothering you, nothing tainting anything that you're doing, just peace. Like you just are flowing, you know, like there's, it was awesome. So anyway, go back to yesterday's events, show your gratitude, show your appreciation by recognizing it, writing about it, journaling about the highlights of the day. Going forward, anything that you wish to manifest for yourself, create for yourself. Perfect time to, you know, just get all that down on paper, get your ideas out of your head. And then really, if you have anything that's on your mind, you can write that down. Feel free to write it down or start planning. So with that, I'll start with mine. And I think I'm going to start working on the mantra for the Journey to Greatness, which I meant to do yesterday. So I'll see you guys on the other side. Let you know what I come up with. No, pen down, pen down. This is like our sixth pen that we've used from start to finish. Nerd alert, nerd alert. I actually keep these things. This is my life. I take responsibility for my actions and reality. I have the power to manifest a life. Okay, I have the power to manifest the life I am destined to have. Life of love, a life of peace. I truly believe I have no limits to. I trust my instincts, God, and the universe. I am ready to transcend. I have arrived, and so it is. I like it. Alrighty, welcome back. Okay, tell me what you guys think. You guys ready? Every morning, this is what I'm thinking. We're gonna say this every morning to ourselves. Before we start our journey to greatness, And I'll have to print this out and I'll put it on the Journey to Greatness page. So you ready? This is my life. I am aware. I take responsibility for my reality and thoughts. I recognize I have the power to manifest the best possible life, a life of wealth, love, and peace. I truly believe I have zero limitations. I trust my instincts, God, and universe. I am ready to transcend. I have arrived, and so it is. So every morning before we start our journey to greatness, that is what we're going to read to ourselves, or pause. That's what I'm going to read to myself. And I would extend that same invitation to you. Now I'll read it one more time, then we'll get into our book. This is my life. I am aware. I take responsibility for my reality and thoughts. I recognize I have the power to manifest the best possible life, a life of wealth, love, and peace. I truly believe I have zero limitations. I trust my instincts, God, and the universe. I am ready to transcend. I have arrived, and so it is. Perfect. So I'll type that up and get it out to everybody. Print it out, put it up on your wall, say it every night before you go to sleep. The biggest motivation or the biggest thing behind it, in my opinion, is the first step to becoming conscious and enlightened is by taking responsibility for your reality. When you become a responsible patron of your reality, then you really start to have those honest conversations with yourself. Tons to talk about today. Holy smokes. So, man, did I really read that many pages? Okay, here we go. So, The Lost Ring. So, Eckhart, at one point in his life, he was a counselor and spiritual teacher. And he would meet with this woman who was riddled of cancer. Her body was riddled of cancer. Her body was riddled with cancer. And she was a school teacher. One day, she happened to be very, very, very upset about something. So she came into the session with Eckhart, the author of the book, and he said, "What happened?" She said her diamond ring of great monetary value had been missing. And she thinks that it was the woman or the lady, the caregiver, who came to her house to help her a couple times a week. She thinks that she's the one who stole the ring. And she was very, very, very upset about this. It's a very expensive ring. It was a ring that she got from her grandmother, right? And so she wore it every single day of her life until she got really ill with cancer, and she couldn't wear it anymore because her hands became swollen. And so she just was so frustrated how somebody who, would come to her house as a caregiver and steal from her as she's pretty much on her deathbed. Prior to that story, she had told Eckhart, the author of the book, as her counselor, that the doctor told her she only had 3 weeks to live. And so, she was very, very deeply saddened and upset that somebody would, that her caregiver, somebody who she trusted to come into her house and take care of her, would steal from her. So very, very high sentimental value, a ring that's very, very important. So she asked Eckhart, should I call the police and or confront the woman? And Eckhart responded, I couldn't tell her what to do, but asked her to find out how important a ring or anything else was at this point in her life. You don't understand, she said. This was my grandmother's ring. I used to wear it every day until I got ill and my hands became too swollen. It's more than just a ring. How can I not be upset? The quickness of her response and the anger and defensiveness in her voice were indications that she had not yet become present enough within and to to disentangle her reaction from the event and observe them both. Her anger and defensiveness were signs that the ego was still speaking through her. I said, I'm going to ask you a few questions, but instead of answering them now, see if you can find the answers within you. Example. No, I'll push on with the story. Then I'll give an example. He asked her a couple questions such as, do you realize that you will have to let go of the ring at some point, perhaps soon? Will you become less when you let go of it? Has who you are become diminished by the loss? There were a few minutes of silence after the last question. When she started speaking, there was a smile on her face, and she seemed at peace. First, I went to my mind for an answer, and my mind said, yes, of course you have been diminished. Then I asked myself the question again, has who I become diminished? This time I tried to feel rather than think my answer, and suddenly I could feel my I amness. I have never felt that before. If I can feel the I am so strongly, then who I am hasn't been diminished at all. I can still feel it now, something peaceful but very alive. Whoa. That is the joy of being, I said. You can only feel it when you get out of your head. Being must be felt. It can't be thought. The ego doesn't know about it because thought is what it consists of. The ego consists of thought. The ring was really in your head as a thought that you confused with the sense of I am. You thought I am, or a part of it was in the ring. Whatever the ego seeks and gets attached to are substitutes for the being that it cannot feel. Okay. Two separations here. You have ego and you have being. You have physical thoughts and you have spiritual living. So emotion, feeling. Two separate things. So what's happening here is this person has attached themselves to something material. It's been taken away from them, and so she's lost her identity. She's allowed it to frustrate or fluster her to a very high capacity. Pause. Now, is it bad to lose stuff? Absolutely. Does it suck to have stuff stolen from you? Absolutely. At the same time, the longer you dwell in that space, if you focus about what you don't want and you focus on all the negativity and you focus on this and that and this and that make you have a bad day, guess what you're going to do? You're going to continue to multiply, and that thing is going to go from a small snowball to a big snowball to the world that crashes down on your head, right? Then you just have a negative and bad life, okay? So we want to keep that out. Leave that over to the side. So it happens, mourn, get over it, push on. Figure out a way to get it back, or whatever it is, because our identity is not in the material things that we have. For example, I was moving some furniture. My buddy sold me some furniture. He was moving away to Australia. He's like, "Hey, Dave, I'm thinking about selling this furniture." I said, "Okay, great." And I was primarily doing it to help him out because I knew he was leaving. He wasn't going to sell the furniture, and I was like, "Okay, hey, man, tell you what." Give me the furniture and we'll square up, sometime in the near future, just so I can get it off your hands. So you don't have to be stressed out about having this furniture and trying to move it here and move it there, move it there. So went up there. I call a buddy of mine. It was somebody that I knew through somebody else. And I had a brand new iPhone and I had a brand new iWatch that I had just gotten for my birthday. And we were moving everything. I mean, this furniture was heavy. And it was some box springs. It was really heavy. And I loaded up the truck, and at one point I had to get out of the truck, take off my watch and take my iPhone out of my pocket because I'm trying to lift this heavy couch or this heavy couch up onto this rail, and I put it in on top of one of the couches we had put into the trailer already. And I remember this vividly, right? It was in broad daylight. I remember this. I put it there, drove the truck down, left the truck at my buddy's house because I was at the time living in an apartment, and I don't know why I did that, but I just did it. I thought it was smart. And then I gave him a key to the truck in the event that something was to happen or we needed to move something or what have you, right? Well, the next day, I went to go pick up the truck. I was so beat and tired, right? Because I was just on a mission to get it done. Next day, I went to go pick up the truck, drop it over to the U-Haul. And the reason why I didn't drop it over the same night at the U-Haul is because they told me they were going to be open. When I got there, they were closed early. Go figure, right? So I went to early in the morning, go drop it off at the U-Haul, went to unload everything, and guess what? My phone and my iWatch was missing. Both of them. Still to this day have I not found them, and I've unloaded those trucks almost over a year ago. Both of them still missing. Okay? And I mean, we searched high and low, through every crack, through every crevice, everywhere. Nowhere to be found. Now, what's your conclusion about the situation? Do you think that my friend stole it out of the truck? Or do you think I maybe misplaced it, put it on top of the truck somehow, and then it fell off on the freeway when I was driving down the street? Okay, time's up. At the end of the day, this is what I felt. I felt that I had been robbed, right? But there was no way for me to prove it. So immediately I had to let go, because for me to point my finger at somebody and say, you did it, I know it was you. You're the only one who had access to the truck. Process of elimination says, Detective David says, you stole my watch and you stole my phone. But because I didn't see it, I said, okay. I ended up paying him $120 for helping me move. And if he was the one who indeed took my phone and my watch, he also got, over $1,000 worth of electronics. All in one day. Congratulations. My point here is most people, when I tell some people that story, they were like, come on, dude. Like, obviously he stole that from you. Why would you give him more money? For me, it's like, and I was talking about this with some friends. It's like, for me to give him the $100 or the $120 and say, thank you for helping me. And if he has any type of conscience or he has any type of remorse or emotion, when he took that money, if he was the one who took my phone, I feel like to some capacity or some degree, it made him think twice about his decision, if he in fact did take it, right? But at the end of the day, it really was frustrating to me, and I was frustrated for like a good hour or 2 hours maybe, and I never accused him of it, but I did frankly ask him for it, and at the end of the day, I had to let it go, and I still gave him the money. Now check this out. In the last few weeks of this client's life, who's a school teacher who had cancer. Wait, pause. That is the joy of being. So she came into being because she let it go. She let go of the physical thing. I was in form of being in peace because I let it go. I let it go. I said, damn, that sucks. I lost my phone. We'll let it go. In the last few weeks of her body, she became weaker. In the last few weeks of her life, as her body became weaker, she became more and more radiant of light. More and more radiant, as if light was shining through her. She gave many of her possessions away, some to the woman who she thought had stolen the ring. Similar situation, right? And with each thing she gave, her joy deepened. When her mother called me to let me know she had passed away, she also mentioned that after her death, they found her ring in the medicine cabinet in the bathroom. Did the woman return the ring, or had it been there all the time? Nobody will ever know. One thing we do know, life will give you whatever experience is most helpful for your evolution and your consciousness. Whoa, we will never fail, in other words. How bad would it have been had I accused this individual or this person of stealing my personal items out of my truck because he was the only one who had the key and he was the only one at the house, had I found it the next day or the next month or maybe even next week, who knows? It might come back to me. How bad would I have felt, right? How bad would she have felt? And had she accused her, would she have even gotten it back? Maybe not, right? Because if the woman had stolen her ring, she would have been like, oh, you're offending me. You're accusing me of stealing something that you didn't even see me take. You're offending me. So it is wrong then to be proud of one's possession or to feel resentful toward people who have more than you. Question mark. Not at all. That sense of pride of needing to stand out, the apparent enhancement of one's self through more than, a diminishment through less than, is neither right nor wrong. It is the ego. The ego isn't wrong. It's your unconscious. When you observe the ego in yourself, you are beginning to go beyond it. Don't take the ego too seriously. When you detect egoic behavior in yourself, smile. At times, you may even laugh. How could humanity have been taken in by this so far for so long? Above all, know that the ego isn't personal. It isn't who you are. If you consider the ego to be your personal problem, then that's just more ego. It's awesome. I was at the bank a couple of days ago. So, example of what ego might look like. I was at the bank, a couple of days ago, and I used to be a teller in my earlier days before I got into the relationship manager part of the business, the banking, finance. That was my finance experience, right? And I went to the bank a couple of days ago, and I went and I swiped my card, okay? I put in my PIN, and the lady still asked me for my identification card, my ID. And I said, in my mind, I'm like, I just gave you my PIN, right? I swiped my card. First off, if somebody was duplicating my identity, they'd have to have my card in their hand, which is easy. Grab it out the mailbox, right? Or whatever, intercept mail. You can do it, all kind of crazy stuff, right? And you need to know my PIN. Those are the two things. I'm accessing my account. I'm telling you the account that I'm pulling the money out of, and I'm doing that motion. Hadn't been in banking before, the PIN is a very valid way to authorize an account. And I would never ask for another form of ID unless the account was like super duper new. But I had the account there for over 5 years, right? So I'm sitting here. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, why? So my immediate response was, I just gave, and then I stopped. Right? Because all of that conversation happened in my head in like a half of a second. And I responded, I was like, I just gave, and I was like, pause. Open my wallet, take my card out and gave it to her, my head down like this. Right? My ego was offended. Like, why would you ask me for my ID card when I just put my PIN in and swipe my card? My identity is valid. It's authenticated right there. But then immediately after I stopped myself and I was like, no, don't do that. Just give her the card. It's not a big deal. Just give her what she's asking for. Don't take it personally. It's not racism. It's not discrimination. She's asking to make sure that the security of my account is protected. How can you be upset at that, right? Like, whoa, David, put myself back into reality, like into my life. And then I thought, well, man, I remember when I was on the other side of the table, when I would ask people for their identification card and how mad they were and how I felt after they left. And so all of that happened post my response. And so those are egoic responses, And so I think it's important when we recognize ego exists and we say, okay, ego is here. It's always going to be here. We are, to some capacity, insane, is what Eckhart says in his book. Some people are a little bit more to the edge than others. But it's beautiful. It's natural to be a little bit dysfunctional, right? We all have sin, but it's just being aware of it, you guys. And that's really what I'm trying to hit the nail on the head. Ego will always be there, but recognizing that when somebody pulls up in a really nice car, that you don't that you don't start getting jealous or envious of them. That's the egoic response. To listen to somebody's story and not judge them for it, and try to make yourself appear better than them. That's the egoic. That's a non-egoic response. But to do the opposite would be an egoic response. To puff up your chest and say, "Oh well, if you got this and I got this," that's ego, right? Trying to protect you. So it's once you see that that's happening, and pay attention as you go through today. I challenge you, go through today and pay attention to the way you respond to people. You got a lot of money in your account. If you ever say to anyone, "I'm $1 million man," you have no right to talk to me that way. That's the egoic response, right? So just being mindful of how you're responding to people and where that's stemming from, and knowing that it'll always be there, and then responding accordingly, I think will help bring some light to who you are. So the illusion of ownership. We're getting into our last wave here. And then another clear point is the ego cannot feel. It can only think, right? So if you feed your thoughts with negative stuff, then your ego, when it responds, I believe, will project negative energy. If you recognize that it's there and you're feeding yourself really positive thoughts all the time, then it's an easier transition to get into the enlightenment side. So it comes into your thoughts, right? Goes down into your ego, and then it goes to your, then you start to become enlightened. Once you become enlightened, then you rise above the ego. And so now, like I was saying, days ago, before we even read this, even months ago, before we even read this book, that you transcend and you operate in a space that's above ground. You're not living a physical experience any longer, because you're not limited by anything that your senses tell you have appear to be your reality. Oh, that's unrealistic, David. No, it's not. It might be for you, but it's not for me, right? So to own something, well, how do you know? You don't have any money. You don't have this. You don't have that. You don't have that. Yeah, well, that's your limiting belief. I understand that this life in this universe is filled with unlimited possibility. You sitting right there on the other side of me cannot even begin to fathom how many opportunities, what the blessings are to come. So for you to make an opinion on that and generalize that to me or anybody else in the room, you're absolutely 100% incorrect and not aligned with the universe, period. That's how I feel. Because for us to limit ourselves is absolutely ridiculous and absolutely blocking ourselves from creating and being the biggest that we can possibly think ourselves to be. Okay, the illusion of ownership. To own something, what does it really mean? What does it mean to make something mine? If you stand on the street of New York, point at a large skyscraper, and you say that building is mine, you're either very wealthy, a pathological liar, or you need to go see a psych ward. So Eckhart says, well, okay, let me get his words exactly right. You are delusional. Many people don't realize until they are on their deathbed and everything external falls away that no thing ever had anything to do with who they are. In the proximity of death, when death is near, the whole concept of ownership stands revealed as ultimately meaningless. In the last months of their life, they then also realized that while they were looking throughout their lives for a more complete sense of self, what they really were looking for was their being, had actually always already been there, but had been largely obscured by their identification with things, which ultimately means identification with their mind. So most people realize that their life was not lived to its fullest potential because they're caught up in the physical experience. They're caught up and limited to their senses, their physical senses. The whole goal in life, in my opinion, for me, is to become the most enlightened I can become. Because with that, you not only become a better person, but you become a better person to the people around you. You become a better person to the world, and you're able to give back so much more. And not only that, the journey is so fun. Like I'm saying, you should have seen me. I was laughing in the teller line when I stopped And I'm like, David, why would you do that? And I'm like talking to myself, and the woman's on the other side looking at me like I'm probably crazy, right? A little loose screw up here. But I don't care, right? I don't care. But I was laughing at myself out loud. Like, that's so funny. So the journey is actually really fun because it becomes a game with yourself, you know? And it's a fun game to play. And the better and better you become at understanding and kind of dancing with your ego, you become more and more enlightened. Like I said, the more enlightened you become, the more powerful you become, the more limitless you become. Like the pill. You take the pill and everything's possible. But most people don't realize that. They're still consumed in the physical things. And then when you die and your physical experience is over, then what? Where's your spirit go? So, you know, it's like we're all going to die. But the understanding that this face, that this body, that these legs, everything about me, this entire setting is all a big illusion is something that we have to all come to terms with at one point or another. And if it's now, you can enjoy so much more because now you're able to manifest and live in a spiritual life, live in a spiritual realm rather than a physical experience. Except otherwise, you know, be at your deathbed potentially, you know, sitting there asking yourself, well, what did this all really mean? You know, blessed are the poor in spirit, Jesus said. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs will be the kingdom of heaven. What does poor in spirit mean? This is what Jesus said. No inner baggage, no identifications, not with things nor with any mental concepts that have a sense of self in them. And what is the kingdom of heaven? The simple but profound joy of being that there is when you let go of identification and so become poor in spirit. Now, interestingly enough, some Christians pause. Let me just take that. Let me take that step back. Let me not go there. That's a totally different discussion. Let me stick to the literature here. I was going to make a really good point, but I'll just bite my tongue and stay neutral. So what does it mean to be poor in spirit? So no inner baggage, no identifications. People like Dr. Wayne Dyer, like things that he would do is he would accumulate all this stuff, right? He was a wealthy person, to my understanding. He was on PBS for years, just dropping nuggets and dimes, probably on a black and white screen and like just that monotone, boring voice, right? Just dropping dimes, right? Enlightening people probably all over the world. And what he would do is he would accumulate all this stuff. And then at one moment, drop of the dime, he would give everything away, everything. And I don't know if he gave away his house because I think he had a family, but he would give all of his material possessions away. So he would accumulate all this stuff and he would give it all away, which is very popular in Eastern culture and spirituality. So like Lao Tzu, which is another book that we'll probably read, the Tao Te Ching is the book that we will probably read next. I heard it's an amazing book, an absolute amazing book. But my point here is being poor in spirit means that we have no internal identification with anything around you. Now, that's where you start segueing into gratitude. I'm grateful for having this cup to take a sip of my tea, and having a spoon to turn the tea in my tea bag in my cup, right? So renunciation of possessions, so giving away your possessions, however, will not automatically free you from the ego. It will attempt to ensure its survival by finding something else to identify with. For example, a mental image of yourself as someone who has transcended all interest in material possessions and therefore is superior, right? Is another idea that you are more spiritual than the person next to you kind of thing, right? That's the ego talking to you. Oh, you spent 365 days. You are better than everybody else. No, it's not. It'll find some way to try to identify with something, your ego. So having a balanced and checked ego will help with, again, the road to enlightenment. There are people who have renounced all possessions but have a bigger ego than some millionaires. If you take away one kind of identification, the ego will quickly find another. It ultimately doesn't mind what it identifies with as long as it has an identity. Anti-consumerism or anti-private ownership would be another thought form, another mental position that can replace identification with possessions. Through it, can make yourself right and others wrong. As well, as we shall see later, making yourself right and others wrong is one of the principal egoic mind patterns, one of the main forms of unconsciousness. Okay. In other words, the content of the ego may change. The mind structure that keeps it alive does not. Huge, you guys. This man right here, you guys need to read this book. I know we're reading it together to a degree, but you guys should pick this book up. This book is awesome, and study it. And what it's saying there is like at the end there, that yes, yes, you have more money, and so you're becoming more enlightened by not identifying with that money. But the concept of identifying with that money will continue to be repeated, even though the money is no longer the subject of the conversation. So it might be you getting up every morning and walking around with the superior confidence, which I definitely think you should walk around with the confidence. But then it's about when you open your mouth, what are you saying to people? How are you treating people? And to my point here at the end, let me see here. I had a good point I was going to make. It always made that mind identify with anti-private ownership being a mental position. With positions through it can make yourself right and others wrong. Okay. That's another really big thing to end with, okay? Being right and making others feel like they're wrong. Super egoic, right? That's why I introduced the idea of agreeing to disagree. And I didn't introduce it, but I put meaning to what those were, those empty, what it appeared, those societal norm cliche words. I'll agree to disagree. What does that even mean? I can tell you. In experience and in relationship and dynamic. If somebody comes to you and they say, you're wrong, you look back at them and you say, I agree to disagree with you, right? And I am okay with you saying that I'm wrong, and I'm letting you know I disagree with you. Period. Done. Conversation over. There's no arguments. There's no debate. There's no dialogue. You have your opinion. I have my opinion. Everything goes over your head. Whew. Right? So it's a lot easier to agree to disagree with people. Now, if somebody is directly like imputing on you, and you and you feel something coming up for you, voice your opinion. If it goes to the point where there's an exchange now, unless it's some type of structured debate, or you're in a litigation, or you're in some type of situation where you get to speak your voice, right? There's a number of other life skills that we'll learn, or that would help us through that phase, or through that those staged environments. But on a one-to-one basis, like, why be in a stressful situation if you don't have to be? Oh, well, I believe it's this. I believe it's that. Okay, well, this is how I'm looking at it. How are you looking at it? Oh, I'm looking at it this way. Okay, perfect. I agree to disagree with you. Rather than, no, you have to look at it this way. No. I understand where you're coming from, but this is the right way to all that to it. I mean, I guess it's situational, but for the most part, I hope you guys understand the general pretense of what I'm trying to say here. No arguments. We're both right. We're both wrong. You're right. I'm wrong. I'm right. You're wrong. It doesn't, it doesn't. Agree to disagree is probably one of the most biggest learning skills that I learned. And I learned it with a really good friend of mine, a brother to me. So with that being said, I hope you guys all have the best day of your lives. Whew, that was a heavy one. 6:30. Go out there, rock the day, destroy the day. Day 206 of 365 with David McDonald, the GOAT. And if you don't know what GOAT means, it means greatest of all time. Somebody asked me that yesterday. They're like, what is the GOAT? What does GOAT mean? The greatest of all time. And I told my friend, I said, not only does it mean the greatest of all time, meaning I'm calling myself the greatest of all time, identifying with being the greatest of all time, My greatest and highest ambition is for everybody else out there in the community to understand that they too are the greatest of all time at whatever they put their minds to, whatever they put their hearts to. And so long as that, both of those are pure and they fight and they work hard for it, they can be the greatest of all time also. Pause. They are. They're not going to be. They already are. They're going to come into it a little bit further. They're going to be reminded of how great they are, or they're going to be introduced to how great they are. And I think those are helping people get to their highest selves, which is my goal in life, or one of my life purposes, I should say. So to end, we're going to say our mantra. This is my life. You can feel free to say it out loud if you're at home. This is my life. I am aware. I take responsibility for my reality and thoughts. I recognize I have power to manifest the best possible life. A life of wealth, love, and peace. I truly believe I have zero limitations. I trust my instincts, God, and the universe. I am ready to transcend. I have arrived. And so it is. Love you guys. See you tomorrow.